Assalamualaikum, Mohammed. Uh, I
Assalamu
give,
alaikum.
I give you your time, around 25 minutes, to present your view about the digitalization in government sectors. Time.
Thank you very much. And Assalamu alaikum and good morning, good afternoon to everyone, wherever you may be. It's really a pleasure to be here and sharing some views with you. Thank you for Abdurrahman for inviting me to be part of this. So what I'm going to do is present some slides and talk through a perspective which is slightly different to conventional thinking on digital transformation. I thought many of us have been hearing a lot about digital transformation in government and what governments can do to make service delivery better and to operate better. But maybe there is an opportunity for us to rethink or reimagine government for the digital era rather than looking at the conventional transformation. So if you give me 1 second, I'm just going to present my slides, and if you can then let me know. I hope they are visible now.
Yes, visible now.
Great. Okay, so let me start with first kind of painting a picture where we are today. All of us now see that our world has changed. And if we hadn't realized it, COVID-19 has made us think about this world. Everything we used to do in silos and different physical forms and in different areas is kind of all now colliding into one device, which is our mobile and the internet. So most of what we do today is moving towards the what I call the online playground. And if we look at some of the facts, this is not my opinion alone. It is backed by many solid facts. For example, 6.6 hours a day on average are spent by each internet user online. That's a huge amount of time. Around 4.7 billion internet users around the world were there in 2020, and this has only grown. I'm waiting for the latest figures to come to see how COVID has even impacted this. Digital advertising, for the first time, 50% plus digital advertising is taking place, not in the conventional place, but in digital, in online spaces. And 4.1 billion active social media users in 2020. Again, huge numbers. And 82% of internet users search online to buy or purchase of a product or service, right? So our life is moving towards that direction. And if we look forward as well, we find that this is not something that is going to change backwards, but it will go forward. So for example, 1.2 billion 5G connections by 2025, 15 connected devices per person by 2030. That means each one of us will have at least 15 connected devices by 2030. Some of us even today have them. And this is not just about obviously our mobile phone and our laptops. This is other devices as well. So machine to machine, particularly. For 41.6 billion connected devices by 2025. That's a huge amount of volume. So that means a lot of our life is going to change. It's going to be through direct communication between devices themselves rather than just humans to device or human to human. And if you look at the data, the same story. If you look at the interactions per day, for example, 4,900 digital interactions per day will happen per connected person by 2025. So if we go even beyond, we look at the growth rates. We're looking at 7.5% is the annual growth rate in the numbers of internet users. Now, this is numbers coming from before COVID hit. And I'm expecting the latest numbers when I get hold of them, that will show even a higher growth rate. 12.3% growth rate in annual growth of social media users. 33.2 billion digital education market by 2025. So we're seeing a big shift of our education market. We're seeing a big shift of our commerce to be e-commerce. We're seeing healthcare shift as well. We're seeing payments to be shifting, and we're looking at entertainment also to shift huge, and look at the numbers like 145.6 billion video on demand market by 2030, growing at something like 9.5% CAGR. So this is kind of the story. And we all know, but it's important to point out as well, that COVID has actually put a spotlight on the world that had already changed, but we hadn't realized it's changed so much. And not just that, COVID is giving the push to speed up this journey to this next phase of the digital world. So whether we like it or not, every one of us is thinking, how can we work from home? How can we do things online? How can we find a different method of working, living, playing, etc.? And all governments are now starting to think about this. Whole organizations are starting to think about. Many organizations, including my own organization, is looking at potentially never having to return back physically to work unless it's really needed. Now, from a government perspective also, it's good to see that it's not that only this is happening in the private sector. The governments have been moving in a very fast pace towards making themselves more digitally enabled. And if you look at, for example, 65% of UN member states now are in the high or very high EGDI group. And if you're not familiar with the EGDI ranking, which is the UN's e-government development index or survey, that shows a huge shift from previous years to where we are today. And this is again looking at the 2020 result. We're expecting the next survey result to come out in 2022. Interesting to see how this is shifted then. And 22% of UN member states have moved to a higher EGDI grouping. So EGDI is grouped around very high, high, medium, and low. So this shows you how much movement is upwards towards digital maturity. And 84% of UN member states now offer at least one online transaction service. Now, more and more, it means that services are moving to the online world. However, whilst all of this happened, I believe we have missed a trick. Because we have taken a technology first play approach to all of this, what we've ended up with is a situation, what I call fragmented access to government services. So if you look around you, you'll find in one country, hundreds of mobile apps being pumped out by different government agencies. So you don't have a unification of that. Everyone has a portal. Everyone is looking at their own way of delivering things through contact centers, service centers, kiosks. So there is a fragmentation of access. And if you think from a citizen perspective and you want to apply a human design thinking to this, you find that as a human being, I'm confused. Where do I go? Which app do I use? And try to learn about all of these things and understand where to go to get services. The other problem that I've seen, and this is not something that has happened during the digital age, but it's been there for years, is that our need is partially fulfilled by different agencies. And I'll use an example. If you think of starting a business, you'll find that majority of the actions are on you as an entrepreneur, as an individual, and you need to go from one government agency to another government agencies to another government agency, eventually to get to a point where from your perspective as an entrepreneur, you can start your business. And this is a challenge because most governments look at starting a business from their narrow perspective. I'm doing a great job. I'm digitizing my service. Look, I can do it. You can do it online. You can do it within 24 hours. So how great I am. Absolutely, you are great. But if you look from the entrepreneur's point of view, for them, starting a business is not one agency completing their task, but is actually opening the doors to business. You know, if you are a restaurant, for you, starting a business is when you are able to bring customers into the restaurant, not when you receive maybe one document or two documents or three documents. So that mindset change is important. And that's why I talk about this partial fulfillment of a need, not a full fulfillment. So what does this mean? I mean, for me, frankly, it means we really need to ask some fundamental questions, and we need to go beyond thinking what we're thinking today. We need to ask questions like, why do we do as government what we do today? Are the things we do today, are they even relevant or are they redundant? Should I stop doing them? And if they are needed, is there a better way of doing these? Should someone else do it? Should it be me as a government or someone else is better? And most importantly, what are we not doing today that we should be doing to enable a better life for our citizens? And I'll give an example here is when I talk about, asking these fundamental questions. Typical digital transformation will mean, if, for example, you are a passport agency, how can I efficiently, using digital technologies, deliver passports, produce passports, deliver passports? Or how can I make the experience better for my user to receive the passport, apply for it, etc.? Reimagining requires you to even ask a more fundamental question, which is, why is actually passport needed? What is the purpose that passport fulfills? The purpose is to enable travel. So then you ask yourself a question: do I really need a passport, a physical document in this era? I believe passports have passed their sell-by date. They are not required anymore. Facial recognition, biometrics, data exchange between governments enables you to become your own passport. And if we look at some of the countries, and I can give you an example of UAE and Dubai in particular, where what is happening today is they are testing a pilot for a walk-through immigration model. So I, as someone going to board a plane, don't need to go through immigration and even e-gates or see an immigration officer for entering the airport. I just walk through this tunnel and I look at the camera and it recognizes me, it does through facial recognition. And only if there's a problem, then someone intervenes and comes and asks for your passport. Otherwise, it lets you go. And they've been piloting this now for almost a couple of years. And once the pilot test is complete, and if it's a success, you will see this being rolled out. So this is the kind of mindset that we need to be thinking about and asking some fundamental questions. So for me, we need to go far beyond digitizing. We need to move towards this reimagining of government model, because that is the only way I believe we can leverage the power and the of technologies we have today, and we can start to question fundamentally why we're doing what we're doing. So this, for me, is about moving towards building a new government model, which I call smart government, and shifting our conversation from even digital, because digital to me is a technology term, and building it ground upwards, thinking, reimagining, and saying, what could my model look like in the era I'm living in? How can I use the business models of this era, the digital business models, and how can I use the technologies that I have at my disposal that I didn't have before? And I've picked smart with purposefully because I wanted to represent this model with something that will always remain relevant. It will never die. And smart to me is something which, in today's world, smart could mean using digital technologies. In the future world, it could be using some other technologies or other business models. And therefore, this will always remain alive. It will never die, like, for example, the e-government, and then moved from e-government to now digital government. There will be something else. So smart allows us, to, if you look at the definition, it means quick-witted intelligence. And in essence, it's about possessing the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills and think or respond quickly and efficiently. I don't know about you guys, but I would love my government to be this. And I've put a definition around what I believe this means, the smart government. I put it as a system that has the ability to constantly identify, predict, understand needs of its citizens before we as citizens have even figured these out. So they are thinking for us, not just us are thinking for ourselves, because they are the ones who need to create the environment, enable our lives, and converts this intelligence and insight into actions that enable us as citizens to live secure, healthy, meaningful, content, and fulfilled life. That's what I believe the system should be looking to do. And I'll leave you to be the judge of whether your current models allow this to happen or not. And it effectively and efficiently uses all resources at its disposal to achieve this purpose, whether it's people, natural resources, digital and other technologies, big data, advanced analytics, you name it. But most importantly, it constantly questions and challenges the status quo. It never looks at what I'm doing today is good enough. And this, I believe, needs to be established around 5 principles And it should be about, at its core, it should be about how do we better connect with our citizens, or the stakeholders who we serve. And I'm using citizens as a broad term. It includes even the businesses and others who the government serves. And it's about moving from a doer to more of an enabler as a facilitator. And I often talk about this, that I believe we are in a time frame where we need less government, more governance, and enable the ecosystem, which is one of the components of this. So focus should be life experiences. That should be the main focus of this model. The core around which it's built and make it its real engine is data and analytics. How do you use data? How do you capture data? And how do you convert that into value for really running efficiently and delivering better experiences for citizens? Model is ecosystem centered. So let's not do everything ourselves as governments. Let's be, as I said, less government, more governance. Let's activate the startup ecosystems, the academia, the private sector, so that we can get more innovation into government and faster innovation into government. Emphasis is digital by default, but not only, because there are many people who don't have access to digital devices, or they're not digital literate. So for them, it may be a challenge. So there's a journey we need to take our people on and not leave anyone behind. Because if digital on its own was the silver bullet and it was the answer to everything, we wouldn't have the digital divide that we have today in the world, where almost 50% of the world is not able to access or use digital services. And the obsession, and this is very important for me, should be about outcomes based results, not outputs, which is typically what the focus is about. So what is the model today? We all must be familiar with, today's model. If you are a citizen, you are having to interact with different layers of government and many government agencies. So you have a vertical and a horizontal complication, and many, many different connecting points. Number two, the effort is all on you as a citizen or as a user of government services to remember, to understand, to find, to discover what your rights are, and then do this, the process. And it's reactive. So again, you don't think about it. The government doesn't think about serving. It's about the other way around. And as I explained earlier, the need is partially fulfilled, so it's not fully completed. Where I think this should be going is towards creating a layer which is missing for me in government today, in government models, is what I call citizen life experience management. Wouldn't it be great that the government was proactively thinking about designing and defining experiences from birth to death, the lifespan of a human being? What is it that I would like to give as an experience to a newborn, someone who becomes a toddler, someone who becomes a student, someone who becomes first time in employment or start their business and retirement, etc., etc. Love to see a government take that challenge and say, I'm going to define what good looks like. What does an amazing experience look like? And then enable that through simplification. For example, one front end of government, not multiple different access points. One brand I can call, this is my government, and that's what I access through. And digital enables that. An omni-channel experience where digital is first, but not only, it gives other models for accessing government services as well. And around life moments of the individual's life experience. So if you are having, let's say, a baby, then we are looking at packaging services proactively around that life moment, not you are having to figure it out. And wherever possible, connecting the public and the private sector with that life moment. Because for you, giving birth, having a baby is not about just government services. It's about that experience. You want to make that as simple and easy as possible. And if it's fragmented, then you are going to have many frictions. And importantly, also putting policies and regulations that drives private sector and the third sector to play their role in enabling a designed life experience. And also this means kind of shifting from the representative model of governance, which exists today, where we pick our representatives to represent us, and then the relationship between them and us is broken till the next election time, to a participatory model of governments. Yes, we do select our representatives, but we are engaged and connected with them on a day-to-day basis, and we continue to be engaged because our priorities for our constituent is being taken up by our representative in parliament or other places. And from a technology point of view, it means moving from this kind of typical siloed approach where every government ministry has their own technology stacks and running their own technology to more of a horizontal, integrated, as a shared ICT model, a trusted government as a platform. Also want to touch on, when we look at digital transformation, we should be looking at it through a holistic lens. So 3 lenses I suggest. One is look at the 3 pillars, because don't just look at the government, which is the executive branch, but look at the legislative branch as well, and judicial branch as well, because all of these can be reimagined and transformed. Think from a perspective of all of the different kind of interactions, G2G interaction, G2B interaction, G2C and G2E as employees interaction as well. How am I going to really transform that using the power of digital technologies? And then when you look and zoom into an organization, look at it from the leadership perspective. How can these digital technologies and business models of the digital age enable to direct, to govern, and manage performance of your government organization? How the front end and the delivery is being managed, which is your channels, and how is your core production happen? If you're a passport agency, how are you producing that if you still need to produce it? And finally, your organizational enablement part, which is your supporting processes such as HR, IT, procurement, etc. I want to also mention one more thing, and this is about 2 approaches to having your journey in investing in transforming your government organizations. You can go the conventional route, which is the below one, where you spend the money and you build business cases, you implement, and you try to get the value out of that. But there is another way of thinking about this, that you do that as well, but you also break away and you try to activate new ventures, new startups to accelerate change in government through these startups by giving access to open data and allowing them to be part of some program or some construct. Many countries are setting up GovTech labs run by government to encourage innovation and startups. But what that does do is, one, it brings in innovation quicker into the organization, into the government, but also at the same time, it supports the growth of your digital economy, because these businesses then potentially, when they become successful, can go and sell to other government agencies as well around the world, not just in your own country. And a good example is how today Estonia is based on, and Serbia and some of the other countries, Denmark, UK, based on their successes as being really transformed through digital, are now going and showcasing their capabilities and supporting their companies to go and provide their services to the rest of the world. So this is something which, as an approach, we could look at differently. So what does this all mean? It really requires us to shift our mindset from a technology-led first approach to what I call an experience or a purpose-first led approach, so we really can break through and get the best of the benefit that technology gives us. I'll pause at that. Thank you very much for listening and giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Mohammed.